My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Sivasankaran, Guru Piranyo, fellow Jnanis. Uh, Today actually is a very auspicious day in the sense that I think every day is an auspicious day. But yesterday we celebrated Christmas, and I'm sure all of you all have seen my Christmas message on what what Christ and Christmas means to me, given someone who's been practicing meditation for a long time. And I think it's very important to know that great people, prophets, saints, sages, Mahans that have come, for many, many centuries. And we are very fortunate that we had in the 20th century, Mahan was here, taught very similar spiritual values. Of course, in his own way, he was teaching, but very similar principles and values that help us, humanity particularly, address some of the challenges that we face. And what is really interesting is that, you know, uh, the current situation, as I said in my message, that the global environment is quite uncertain and quite volatile and challenging. We see wars across the globe in Europe and in the Middle East. We see a lot of suffering of people. We see many people struggling and challenging, both in Malaysia and many countries. As our Sabe makes inroads into many of the rural and also urban poor localities. In spite of all the modernity, we see that there's a lot of challenges out there. And we see that great saints and sages, and these challenges have been there for thousands of years. Conflicts, poverty, disease, um, has been there since, all the prophets. You can go back to all the rishis and saints and sages. But what is really interesting is, according to these times, these saints and sages were like the scientists and great thinkers that started thinking about ways to relieve some of those challenges for humanity. And one such person is actually Christ that we celebrated yesterday. For me, these prophets are like what Mahan was trying to do, that to essentially find ways to inspire and ignite our intelligence and our wisdom to navigate through these challenges. So today, as you see that, although you see part 10 in this satsang, actually there are 9 other parts that talks about the science of meditation. And you can download that from the YouTube that we've been discussing. But today I want to link between the values of Christ and the brain chemistry. Oftentimes that this meditation and the values that these great people teach us seem to be mystical. But here, I think if you see that I've shown you that the meditation, the introspection, contemplation, reflection, and meditation and service does have a physiological impact onto our brain. And we've seen that in the last 9 parts. And today I'm going to link it back to what, for me, Christ means and what Christmas means. And it is got to do with something that is happening in our brain. And you see that the values that Christ have, propitiated in his teachings, if you read his words and his messages, you'll see that, it has a profound impact on people who really understand these teachings. Not just Christ, but many of the prophets and the saints. So the purpose of this satsang today is to understand our brain's neurochemistry, reflecting on the lives of great people such as Christ. And I'm going to focus on Christ today because we're commemorating the Christmas Day celebration, what Christ means to me. And I've also spoken about the 7 core values of Mahan and what the Mahan values that have an impact on our physiological part of our brains. This is sometimes often missed out in many of the spiritual teachings, although some have covered this, and you'll see in Mahan's I Got book in page 225, he actually covers some aspects of this. So today I want to focus on the kind of understanding of our brain's neurochemistry, particularly what happens physiologically to the brain if we embrace these values of these great people. So a few things, 8 things that I want to discuss. Today's discussion is about your brain or our brain, more specifically the neurochemistry of our brain and our happiness, right? So we see that it's not about someone else's brain, it is about our brain, and it is your brain. So if we want happiness, we should not focus on other people's brain or business. We should stop blaming others for our unhappiness, right? And you'll see that this is what the teachings of these great saints and sages do. Oftentimes we blame other people for all the discomfort and unhappiness and the misery that comes into our lives. So here it is that the teachings of this great saint says that shift from the outside to within. So, if we tend to blame others for our misery, then this is not the satsang for us, right? So, and if we want to solve things externally, this is not the satsang, right? So this satsang is about don't blame others for our misery, right? We can make peace with ourselves and generate all the happiness by focusing on our brain's neurochemistry. That means we need to look at the values and the virtues that really spark our neurochemistry that gives us that happiness that we want, the peace and happiness. So today's satsang is actually building upon all the work that we have done over the last many years, 3.5 years since COVID, 160 YouTube clips, and specifically in the last 9 YouTube clips, which is about how the values, the virtues, and the practices that actually has a transformative impact on our brain health, on our mind, our intellect, and our way of life. And so today I'm going to speak about the neurochemistry of the brain that makes us happy or unhappy, right? I'll speak about the values, and particularly I want to focus on the Christ values. Maybe, on other occasions I speak about other great saints and sages, but I want to show you what Christ's teachings meant to me, which is, consistent with Mahan's teachings, right? The values that bring about chemical fusion that leads to a happy and productive life. I'm not speaking of just reading books or something like that, or theoretical knowledge, but it's about practicing this Mahan's teachings over the last more than 40 years and putting it into every aspects of my life. Yeah, there are times that uh, I got it, may not be perfect, but over time things became more clear. So I want to share that journey with you, right? So what is this? So it's about not outside. So if our unhappiness, if our misery, the challenges, it's not changing the external things around us, but changing something within us that enables our brain and our mind to be able to become agile, to be able to absorb, integrate, and transform, as I say, these cars into stars or impossible into I'm possible. And we see that, and that's what you'll see later on leads to really a creative and innovative and productive life and a happy life. So this is what I want to share with you. What we call happy hormones. You know, over the many years, I've been studying why is it that when I practice meditation, I feel more calmer, I feel more happier, I feel more productive. There are moments that I cannot solve certain problems that, after my morning meditation, when I sit down, these problems become much more easier. And being a scientist and a researcher, it has given me tremendous insights into many, many things. So I wanted to understand. So using that, curiosity of Mahan and Christ and many, many scientists, I say, look, there must be something happening in my brain that before I was not happy, things were tough, things did not make sense. What is it that is changing in me? So I started, exploring further the mind. And you'll see in the last 9 YouTube clips, I go through stage by stage parts of the brain that will start disintegrating, or the neural connection starts disintegrating as we age. But introspection, contemplation, reflection, meditation, and service does slow down that process. Sometimes it even reinforces and strengthens that it makes the brain much more efficient as we age. But I want to talk about these happy hormones, or what the chemical triggers that make us happy. The first one is, I won't go into the technical details, but there are various scientific literature and references to this. Mahan touches a little bit on some of them, not in a chemical way, but in a more kind of a simpler way. But I just want to give you what is happening in the brain. But before, particularly when we practice meditation, or follow these values of these great saints and sages. The first one is actually what we call dopamine. Dopamine, what scientists call, is actually the reward hormone. It's a feel-good hormone. When we do something positive, or when we are studying for an exam, and when we do really well, we feel good. So there is a kind of a feel-good hormone that we have. Or when we are pursuing something and we achieve that, we feel good about it. So there is this reward hormone. And this is something that, through evolution, sometimes it's called the survival mode of human beings, that over time, these things have been imprinted in us, that it makes us strive to get certain things. The only challenge with this is that when we achieve it, the dopamine level comes down and we go back to the normal, depression, misery. So there are ups and downs. And you'll see later on how do we reinforce this. So there is an important hormone called dopamine that gives us the feel good. The other hormone is actually oxytocin, which is the love hormone. This is part of nature to build that love and the companionship that we as a species individually, we cannot survive in a very tough environment where there are other species that are more powerful and stronger than us. There are temperature and climatical conditions that not in favor of human existence. So we need to come together for our own survival to withstand these challenges. And nature's built this in us. And this love hormones that actually helps us to build companionship, partnerships, the whole works to build trust. And not just human beings, we also see that in the corporate world, where you build partnerships, strategic partnerships to compete for resources, markets, and so on. So this, at the human level, we see that this oxytocin is really important to help us build partnerships, strong partnerships, and build trust. The fourth one is actually what we call the serotonin, or the hormones, what they call the calm hormones. It helps us to calm down, relax, bring down, particularly when you're so active, this hormone is very important to bring us down to a level so that, our body can recover, rejuvenate. And this is very important for the health and well-being of the body and the brain. Like any other machinery, if you continuously use it, it burns up. So nature's built this system for us so that our brain and our body can relax. And this is very important, particularly for sleep and so on. So, and it also, responsible for feeling happy, right? When we calm down, see, we have this holiday season now, and you see that many people are very happy, and because they can power down and do all the things that they want to do. And we also see this that when Friday comes, everybody is so happy because they have Saturday, Sunday off. But the moment Sunday night comes, the next day is working night, everybody's mood changes, particularly, school children, right? So we see that this calm hormone is very important to for our health of the body, to help us relax, and so on. And the fourth hormone is actually endorphins. This is a very important hormone. It gives us the willpower. It's known as the willpower hormone. It help generate and reinforce positive and inspirational and good habits, right? And it's also said that this also helps us to overcome challenges, pain, and so on. You see, sometimes athletes are climbing mountains and running marathons, and the body is in a lot of pain, and but yet the endorphins keep them going because it kind of reduces the pain of that endurance race and so on. So nature's built this in us. There's four hormones for survival, right? But what happens is that for most people, yes, there are, when good times it goes up, but once the body has achieved it, it comes down, right? And this down part is what impacts a lot of people's emotional state. Up and down, up and down. There are moments they are very happy. There are moments they are really down. So, how does one build that stable emotional state? And that comes back to this chemical triggers that makes us happy or not happy, right? So obviously, the external environment does influence many of our hormonal system, but the great saints and sages teaches us how to manage it from within. And this is the part that there are things that we can do that we can actually moderate and modulate this various hormone system. And you can see this a lot in the literature called mindfulness, which in many of my YouTube clips, I actually make reference to some of the top journals that publish this work that show that how mindfulness help build gray matter and white matter in the brain, helps regulate various hormones that gives us happiness, gives us endurance, gives us courage, and so on. So a lot of the things that we have covered before is very important for today's satsang. The key thing is that if we want to ensure happiness and health of our brain, we should focus on our brain, not somebody else's brain. We should focus on our business and not somebody else's business. And that's what introspection, contemplation, reflection, meditation, and service is critical. And that's what Christ and many great saints have been talking about. I think the problem with most human beings is they like to mind other people's business and not look after their own business. So again, this whole idea of thinking about self-realization, self-introspection, self-discovery is about the focus on the self, the focus on our own brain, and the neurochemistry of our brain, and the things that actually triggers this happiness, productivity, efficiency, and inspiration. So this is what I'm going to cover. I want to now focus on Christ's value. What is it that he taught us? The kind of qualities that he had. If you go back to the scriptures very, very clearly, I won't go into the details, but what Christ's values for me means and how I link this up to the parts of our brain that triggers this happiness. And if you see very carefully, we know that there's adequate science that tells us that what we think is what we become, right? So here it is that for me, as many years of reflecting back, the Christ value and what Christmas means is the following, right? If you see, there are 6 qualities of Christ, And you'll see this emanating in many of his writings, his teachings, and so on. So the first thing is actually the first quality that really helps nurture the happy hormones is what I call compassion, right? This compassion is really important because, we as a species, we compete a lot. And sometimes the competition is so intensive that we go all out to bring down the adversary. And sometimes, if you see very clearly that competition is so intensive, if you see Darwinian theory that says that, uh, that the ones that survive are the ones who can compete intensively. But here Christ says that, yes, competition is very important, but compassion is also more important. This is part of humanity, and that's what makes us survive as a species. So having that, generating unconditional love and kindness with our thoughts, with our words, and our actions are so important. So the first value of Christ, if you see, he was compassionate. You hear the story of Mary Magdalene, right? And clearly, many people accused her of many things, but Christ had tremendous compassion, and he says, "Look, no, uh, nobody is a sinner. Everybody, we have to show compassion to everyone, and having that unconditional love and kindness, in our thoughts, in our words, and our action, has major impact on our brain." Right? It releases, important hormones which are shown earlier. Scientifically, it's shown that it has an impact on the physiology of the brain. So here it is that, giving, having compassion, giving a helping hand, particularly for, and words and inspiration to those who the vulnerable community, the marginalized, what I call the last, least, lost, and the lonely. And this is what the values are I saw in Christ, I saw in Mahan, and many, many great saints and sages, right? So here, you see, be kind and gentle to everyone. As I said, as Christ and Mahan was. And if I reflect back on my own guru, I mean, he acquired this knowledge which he was searching. But, today, if you want to acquire this knowledge of self-realization, meditation, you have to pay a lot of money. But this Mahan and this great person called Christ made it accessible to everyone, no matter who they were, right? So that having that unconditional love and kindness is critical. Yes, nature's blessed us maybe with resources, with intellect, with knowledge, right? We should do our best to impart that knowledge for people who are finding it challenging. And you see that if we did that, you see that there's a structural change that happens in our brain, because that's what nature has wired us. Nature has wired us to look after each other, right? And if we do not take that part of our network will not be built. And you see that the world around us will also not support the development of us. They will not be compassionate to us. So you see that part of this compassion is that when we build this network, there are parts of the chemistry in our brain starts changing. I'll show you some of how it impacts the folk. So this is the first quality. The second quality of Christ is humility, the humbleness to learn and to be able to share, a sense of gratitude, the willingness to assist, as I said earlier, right? And transitioning to me, that ego, to that we as one, and that's why we as a species have survived, is because it's not the me and the competition and all out to wipe out the competition, but actually it's about the we syndrome. And that's why you see that if we had that we syndrome, that humility of wanting to learn from one another, don't have that, inferiority or the superiority complex, we're able to build teams that support one another. And I'll talk about how this is so important, because with humility comes the learning. willing to learn from everyone, every master, including a child that could teach us many, many things, learning from nature, learning from animals and plants. I have a dog, and so much happiness that he brings to our family. We have adopted him to become a family member. So it is that kind of willingness to learn from everyone. So that humility is very important. The third aspect of the Christ value is actually respect and reverence. And this is critical if you see that respect to Mother Nature or the Creator and all the creations. And there is no, I am bigger than this, I am better. We all have our journey. We all are placed in different times, different places, in different positions for a reason. And we have to have that respect for Mother Nature that have given us an opportunity to experience this material world. And that's what respect is. Not harm it. And if we are able to respond with a lot of respect and reverence for nature, actually Mother Nature opens up its secret to all of us. And this is what you see, that great saints and sages and scientists that really spend a lot of time in nature and trying to understand nature. Nature reveals things to them. Why, how did the universe begin? Why did the universe begin? What is my place in the universe? Requires a tremendous amount of reverence and awness and the understanding that, wow, this is so awesome, right? I'm part of this awesomeness. And how do I, understand this? So the respect and reverence brings that love for nature itself and the creator itself. And that gives us the awareness of the oneness. The more we have that respect and reverence, nature opens up its knowledge vault for us. And this is where over time we get that awareness of the oneness, that infinite possibilities and potentialities. Right? You discover amazing things, amazing relationships between everything around us. And this is what, if you read the scriptures by Christ and great saints and sages, including Mahan, that's what Mahan gives a lot of emphasis on respect and reverence. When we have that respect and reverence, when nature opens up its vault, we start getting inspirational thoughts. Our inspirational thoughts starts resonating in our words, in our actions, in our learning, and we realize that how awesome this universe, and we are part of this awesome universe. One of the things that really triggered me to think in this way is that if God is infinite, if God is infinite, omnipresent, omnipotent, is there a place God is not? And if there is a place God is not, then it cannot be an infinite God, infinite creator. So if there is an infinite creator, then what, and I'm part of the creation, so part of the creator must be within me, or at least the DNA of the creator is within me. So that inspiration triggered something very interesting, which is, if God is infinite, the closest distance God is within me, not in somebody else's or not in some other places, but within me. And that triggers this infinite possibilities and potentialities that enables us to transform from the scars to the stars. When something we pursue and we don't get it and it says no, somebody says no, it doesn't mean a negative thing. It means new opportunities. No means new opportunities for us to discover. As I said in my previous satsang, there are times that when we meditate, we get it, wow, the connection state. There are times that the vibration or the unarvu is not very strong. Many people get disappointed. I say, no, the inspirational thought tells me, yes, you can experience that oneness in meditation, but I'm not going to give it to you today. I want you to experience that divinity and the oneness in the things around you, in your family, in your pets, in your workers, in the plants, in the things around you. Because you're so focused on your own self that you don't see me elsewhere. So I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to enable you to experience that in every facet of your life. So when you have that mindset, suddenly you see that you experience the divinity in every facet of your life. And that's what the inspirational that comes in. There's no negativity when you don't get something. You always realize that when something is not given to you, it means that new opportunities that you need to search. This is what I learned from this great saint and sages. There are so many challenges that Christ had, so many challenges Mahans had, so many challenges the great saints and sages had, but they were like the wind. Nothing blocks them. They always found new pathways to be able to navigate through. And that's what an inspirational mindset is. The fifth quality is actually they are very service oriented, right? And one of the key values that they had was that they didn't think about themselves. As I said, me, me, me. It's about we, right? They did not think about return on investment, how much money I put in, how much resources I put in, how much I'm going to get. That's not what their mindset were. Their mindset was that how do I use whatever resources, knowledge that I've got from nature and divinity, create value for everybody else? So I coined this term called return on values, not return on investment. And you'll be able to read some of my articles on this. So Christ and Mahans were thinking about how do I create greater value for society? And we can reflect back on, no matter how much opposition or challenges Christ had, he still powered ahead. He says, I'm not going to give up this principle of service to everyone, not just a particular exclusive people that can benefit this, but everyone should benefit this. You see, the mind is now thinking in a more universal way, right? Mahan did the same thing too. When his teacher told him, no, you select and give people. He says, no, I want to give it to everybody. And he traveled around the world to impart this knowledge to everyone in a ripe, old age of 80, he was traveling. So this service is about, what we acquire, how do we give back to society? And I see many people, they may be materially wealthy, they may be, wealthy in many ways. Somehow there's a hollowness in their lives, right? So here they teach us how to generate return on values, ROV, not ROI, values for ourselves that we can become more and more universal in our outlook, values for our family, our friends, our workplace, and the broader society. We see that the expansion of that return on values triggers something in your brain, which I'll show you shortly. And the last thing is that this is what I learned from Christ, and this is what I learned from Mahan, that if we have compassion, if we have that humility, if we have the respect and reverence, and that nurturing that inspirational thought, never allowing the negativity in us, right? And pushing ahead and having that service mindset, we acquire the last door which opens to us, which is transcendentality, right? We're able to live to outlive everything. Whether we like it or not, we are going to have to outlive this. We are going to outlive it anyway. So at least prepare the mind to live to outlive everything. That means divinizing every aspect of our lives, including all our desires. When we do that, something very interesting happens. As I said, have compassion, humility, respect, inspiration, always happy, it's a can-do attitude, service-minded. And you see that you realize that you attain that infinite potentiality and possibilities. Something occurred to me in my mind when I was meditating many, many years ago. And I was reading Bhagavad Gita, and I was reading even Mahan's I Got book, something very interesting. You can also see this in Christ's, in some of his speeches and his writings and his communication. He says that the divinity, the creator, is the charioteer of my life. Can you imagine if you have a mindset that say, look, I have God riding my mind and my chariot, right? No matter what the challenges are, no problem. I'm able to navigate this through. When In Bhagavad Gita, it clearly states Sri Krishna is the charioteer for Arjuna. Mahan also says in the book, look, when you have full faith in this knowledge, that becomes the guru that guides you, right? That illuminator. And the same thing if you see in Christ's message, right? Through me, you are able to achieve many things. So for me, the transcendentality is that, yes, there are moments that we have challenges, maybe health challenges, maybe, financial challenges, maybe relationship challenges. Yeah, maybe people that give you a hard time. All these challenges, I always had this divinity, that creator is the chariot of my life, right? There are moments that the road is clear and the creator say, look, you can speed up, right? But follow the rules. There are moments that the road is winding. Say, just be careful at the corners, right? I will navigate you through. There are moments that the roads are slippery. Say, okay, slow down. There are moments that the road is completely broken. Say, no, take a rest, take a break until it's fixed. In our lives, this is what also happens. And this is exactly what Mahans and other great saints are saying, that this transcendentality of divinity, God, creator, guru is the charioteer, means that you have that power to overcome every challenges. And this is what, for me, that values of Christ. Now, when I go back and reflect back many of the mindfulness literature and including my own experience, how does this connect to the chemistry of the brain? I want to show you something very interesting here, that all these quality triggers parts of our brain that nature's built us to be able to survive, to be able to do well, to be able to be competitive, to be able to work in partnerships, to build relationships, to be prosperous, to be able to nurture the 10 capitals of life. I'm going to show you how this Christ values have an impact on the parts of our brains and the happy hormones. So let me take you through this. When we have compassion, right, it gives us that sense of, value and purpose, the kindness. When you do something kind, you feel so good. You feel happy, right? And, the dopamine level in your brain just fires away. You feel so, that connection with the vulnerable community or the poor or someone that you feed or someone that you show happiness and kindness, your unconditional happiness of love increases beyond your own self or your family, right? The love hormone, increases, and you're able to build trust. Sometimes there are times that you say, okay, I want to be able to do this. I don't have the resources, and you see that somehow the idea leads to, support and happiness, that people come together to build this. So this compassion leads to building, the unconditional love and kindness that triggers that love hormone that increases trust, the ability to do things, build partnerships, build safe companionships and relationships that come together and build this. I'll tell you, there are many things our Sabha has done to help people, with children with poor, from poor neighborhoods, education, and so on. Today, the next generation is here to help. That reinforces. This includes even my own family. My parents come from a very humble beginning, but because of Mahan, things transform, and we are the next generation that are there. So that love, the kindness builds that trust and builds that companionship and relationship. And you see that, our own relationships with people, with friends, family improves. And that is because, and we feel great because it triggers dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, right? There are times that you're really, really tired, but you say, no, I got to get this done and I've got to do that. So the willpower hormone kicks in, and it reinforces the positivity and the inspiration and the good habits. I'll give you an example. You see, Mahan was 80 years old. He traveled alone around the world. Most people 65, 70 years old, they say body ache, this, that. Mahan did not do that. He traveled around the world, right? So something was pumping in him to take this knowledge to everyone. This is what I saw in Christ and Mahans and great saints. They don't give excuses, right? It triggers, so that value triggers the dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins in them that reinforces, rewires their brain in much more stronger way. The next one is actually about humbleness, that sense of gratitude, willingness to learn, the willingness to transition from me, individual competitiveness to the we, the relationship building. And you see that, there is no more, yes, you compete in a different way. You have the sense of calmness, a sense of, when people compete, there's always that intensity, right? And, they're always, you know, burning the candle, trying to, compete to get the next contract or relationships or whatever. But you see that when you have that humbleness and the gratitude and the kind of sense of, as partnership, you see that you become more calmer. Okay, I may not be able to do it myself. I'll work in teams. I'll try this. So you see that you become more calmer, more cooler, and you see that you don't have to solve everything on your own. But the other thing is that for me personally, there are times that yes, there is intensive competition. My partner was my guru. As I said, the guru became the charioteer of my life. I said, never mind. If I don't get it, it's okay. No problem. I try it another time, try it differently. That gives me a calming effect. So that meditation helps me to kind of, it's okay. There are times I may not get it. So I have to be humble enough to say, I'm not ready. Right. So, okay, I'm not going to compete and kill myself. I'm just going to not stress myself. I'm just going to take time, learn, discover myself. That humility to say, look, I'm not ready yet, right? And this is where the patience, perseverance, persistence, and the practice leads to that, what I call the Paranjoti, the illuminator. And that calm hormone say, okay, there are times that I need to take more time. And that is fantastic. That triggers that calm hormones, very important for the health and the well-being of the body and the brain. And you feel happy actually that if you don't get something, you don't feel disappointed. You feel happy. Okay, never mind. I think I need to do a little bit more work. If I don't get the bonus as I expect, it's okay. I don't get the position, or I don't get certain things. It's okay. I need more time. So I have to be humble enough to accept that. So we see that it triggers serotonin and endorphin. And this is the willpower that comes in the patience, perseverance, persistence. This is the positivity that our brain starts re-strategizing, recalibrating, and it triggers part of the brain. The third aspect is respect and reverence. And this is very important because this is unconditional love. You see, sometimes we love ourselves, we love our family because of the biology. But when we love things in a much more broader way, in a more universal way, not just everyone, we have a responsibility of our family, but, when that extends to the greater society, we have greater reverence for society and all creations. Something very interesting happens in our brain. This is the universal mindset. There is very good literature that shows that when we practice mindfulness, our mindset that controls our perspective of life, the spheres that we operate, becomes more and more broader and universal. And there are, if you're interested in the literature, I can direct you to those literature. But clearly, if you see, why would Mahan and other great saints, go out and spread this knowledge to everyone? Why would Christ do this, right? What's in it for them? We live in a world where everybody wants to make profit. But here, these Mahans are not profit maximizers. They're actually purpose maximizers. They want to achieve a particular purpose that makes society better, and that's what lifts them. It's not a short-term, narrow, outcome. As I said, return on values, right? So this respect and reverence enables them to step up, become one, not just our individual personality or a family responsibility, but much more universal in that responsibility. And that enables them to achieve greater awareness of that oneness, that universality, that infinite possibilities and potentials. So the mind, which is on a survival mode to save the body, you know, make sure that the next generation of the biology continues, but now expands to the broader humanity and nature itself. And you see that the expansion has major impact on our brain and our body. So you see here that when that happens, it triggers so many hormones. Your dopamine goes up. The reward is no more about material reward. It's a much more greater universal appreciation and understanding. The feel good hormone is no more kind of a narrow biological one, but much more a bigger impact. The same thing, you see that the love transmission is not just to myself and my family, but much more universal. We become more calmer because you're not competing with anyone. You are in a different space completely. You have that time and space and patience to be able to see things in a much more global and universal. And you see that endorphins start kicking in, that you build that mental resilience, stamina, and the power to overcome many, many challenges. And you see that this is where, when the respect and reverence is not there, there's a greater cause, people give up very easily. When a small opposition comes in, or a small restriction or small thing, they give excuses. Oh, I can't do this, I couldn't, I've got traffic jam, I got this, like that, all those things. But the Mahans and the Christs were not like that. They have a bigger, understanding of the bigger call. And that triggers all these hormones that enables them to operate at a higher level. So this is what I've seen in Mahans and great saints and sages. And sometimes when I'm practicing, I say, I feel this, and why is that the case? And there are moments that you're really, really tired. You have like 15, 16, 18 hours, and yet your endorphins are kicking in and say, no, we've got to still do this, right? And, you probably heard that, the spirit can lift the body that is tired, lift the body that is, has all kinds of challenges. And this is what it is the hormones that are kicking in and lifting the game for you. The next one is actually inspirational. You see that, suddenly you have the mental stamina, as I said, the spiritual capital, the intellectual capital, the creative capital. Read the 10 capitals that I spoke about, right? You start nurturing that, the ability to, you have that empowerment in you, the empowered capital. And you start nurturing that, inspirational thoughts and words and actions. And we see that, there's nothing that you cannot overcome. The scars to stars. Whatever challenges that you have, okay, I'm going to use this as a foundation for new learning and new discovery. As I said, the impossible becomes I am possible. There are things that many people say cannot do. You say, okay, I may need time, but I can figure it out, right? And that is what that inspirational comes in. Nothing you cannot overcome without, as I said earlier, that the inspiration comes from not from the human biology, but the spiritual imprint that nature has given us. And it is the illuminator, is the guru in us, the Mahan in us, the Christ in us that lifts the game for us. And that is what, when we do that, we see that our dopamine, our reward is no more a material reward. It's something much more spiritual, something much more, our endorphins that helps us to navigate through, even though, our body is tired, even though there are many bodily challenges and many, many other challenges. Right? The inspiration keeps us going. And that's what I saw in Christ. That's what I saw in Mahan and many, many other great saints and sages. Service oriented. So when you have the mental stamina, the mental capacity, the capability And the most important thing is that you become more strategic and clever. In Malay, we say we become more cerdik. We don't waste our time on frivolous things. We know how to use our time effectively to achieve maximum value for everyone. And this is where the term return on values come in. An ordinary human being will not be able to achieve this. You can only achieve this if the brain and the mind has that power to lift its game. And this is what I saw in Christ and Mahans and other great saints. And what they're telling us is that we all can walk that steps if we took these steps towards compassion, humility, respect and reverence, inspiration, and service oriented. And the last part is really important, which is if you see in Christ, he says, my Father guides me. Mahan says the big I. Great saints and sages say there is a force that is driving this. If we learn to understand this force, that becomes our charioteer, that becomes our navigator, that becomes our illuminator, right? So that divinity that is powering the entire universe is also imprinted in our DNA. That's why I say the divine nectar of awareness, the DNA. It emanates, it vibrates as our life force, as our Kundalini force. If we understand our Kundalini force, if we're aware of our Kundalini force, or aware of our life force, we see that that becomes the charioteer of everything that we do. And you see that when that happens, the reward system is no more material reward. It's a much more universal reward, that feeling inspired. That's the reward hormone. That's the dopamine, that is the oxytocin. We have the unconditional love, a sense of calm, serenity, peacefulness, and quietude that enables the brain and the mind to expand its bandwidth, to be able to become aware and understand frequencies that ordinary human beings would not be able to touch or experience, right? That quietude, that calm hormones enable us to calm down our mind, bring a sense of quietude. It expands the bandwidth that enables our intellect to be able to understand very, very subtle things that an ordinary gross mind misses. That's what the purpose of meditation is, to be able to become aware of the divinity, that force, life force, the divinity that is emanating as our life force. And endorphins, right? This transcendentality values actually generates that positivity, that inspiration, the good habits of not gravitating back to that limited materialness, that lifting that material mindset, that personality to a more universal mindset. It helps us manage pain, helps us manage stress. And the transcendental quality enables us to understand the following. Though the body is finite, the spirit is infinite. Though the body is mortal, the spirit is immortal. Though the body is divisible, you can amputate the body, but you cannot amputate the spirit. Though the body is caught in space-time transitoriness, the spirit is transcendental. And when the mind is close to the limited body, the mind captures, or mind becomes the limited personality. What Christ and Mahan and other great saints teach us is that while we have all this limitedness, mortality, all those things, within us, nature's embedded that unlimited, infinite, immortal, imperishable, unblemishable, indivisible spirit. When the mind is anchored on that, we experience that transcendentality. But that requires the first 5 doors to open up, which is compassion, humility, respect and reverence, inspiration, and a service altruistic mindset to be able to do this. And that's what, for me, the Christmas values mean. is the values of Christ, to be able to not just, live an ordinary life, but live an inspirational life that create value for everyone. And this is what, for me, my guru taught me about this great saint and many of the saints that over time I'll speak about, that I studied, put to practice, and experienced. So what does all this lead to? This leads to something very interesting. It leads to a mindset that is so powerful. Powerful in the sense that, it is able to give us that universal mindset. This is from my gurus. This is from my father, Guru Piran Sivasankaran. He says, Mahan's teachings and these great saints' teachings, meditating in a mechanical way will not lead this. It has to have a transformative impact. It has to change the way our values are. As I said earlier, the Christ values, the GP Mahan values, and that triggers something in our brain, the transformation of our physiology of our brain, the chemistry of our brain, the structure of our brain changes, that releases all these happy hormones. The end is that we realize that divinity is imprinted everywhere, including us. And when the mind realizes this truth, the mind, Guru Sankara used to say, don't expect a miracle, be the miracle. Don't expect change, be the change agent. Don't expect an angel, be the angel. Don't expect to go to heaven, be the heaven for all. And that is a powerful statement that, that if someone realizes this, they will realize how amazing, awesome that Creator and the creations, including us, are. And you see that whatever lifespan we have, whatever limited lifespan we have, we live in an unlimited, infinite way. And this is what the awesomeness of these great saints and sages teaching, including for me what Christmas means. Christmas reminds me of this Christ value of creating value for everyone. When we create value for everyone, we create value and purpose for our own life. People always ask me, Guru, what is the purpose of life? I always say, the purpose of life is live a life of purpose, and that's what it is. And that's what makes this life that we're living some inspirational, and that's what the Christmas celebration for me is. Sandosham, thank you very much.